You're tuned in to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. This is your host, Roger, back at you. And I love talking with operators that are moving quickly, working on really exciting brands. Now, this particular concept is called Daily Jam, and I'm speaking with Berekk Blackwell, the president. Daily Jam is a breakfast, lunch, brunch, and specialty cocktail concept that's growing quickly, and they also have a franchise model. So if you're interested in franchising, there's an opportunity for you to check out. We're going to talk all about core values. Now, Daily Jam has 6 core values that drives their brand forward. It's like a mission statement, but it's so much more than that. We're going to get into the depths of that. We're also going to talk about how to build a powerful brand, how to sustain that brand, how to sustain loyalty with your customers, the staff that are the foundation of your business and training them to become brand ambassadors for your business, and all the best practices, including systems that you need in your restaurant. We're going to talk about the importance of taking inventory and how things change from week to week and prices are constantly changing. And if you're not taking inventory, it's like tearing up $100 bills in your walk-in. Take it from me, I know. So stay tuned. There's so much in this episode. I'm so psyched to bring it to you. Thanks for listening. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant RockStars Podcast, and these are engaging topics that help restaurants build their brands, rock their profits, deliver amazing guest service experiences. Really excited today. I have Mr. Berekk Blackwell, and he is the president of Daily Jam. Now, this is a breakfast, lunch, brunch, and specialty cocktails concept. Welcome to the show, Berekk. How are you?
For having me.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you so much. So you have a very interesting backstory. I always ask my guests, how they first got into this industry. And your story includes some pretty illustrious brands, Krispy Kreme donuts and Auntie Annie's Pretzels and the Cold Stone Creamery. I mean, these are nationally known. Some are internationally known brands. How did this all begin, and how did you get your start? How old were you, and what have you done in the business before Daily Jam?
Brands too to work for. They're all sweet and indulgent. So, but I made it out alive. But so I started out actually working at Kahala Brands, which is the master franchisor for Cold Stone Creamery, Blimpie Subs. At the time, they had about 13 other concepts, regional brands, and I was focused on the international side of things. So I was doing market evaluation for foreign markets, new markets that we were evaluating. And I was also splitting time in the finance department. I was a finance major, so I went to school for finance. I've always been a numbers guy. And so I kind of bounced back and forth in between those two roles when I was at Kahala Brands, and did a lot of different things, but ended up bumping into our Cold Stone Creamery partners for Japan. And at the time, it wasn't a master franchise relationship. It was a joint venture. So they were in our office quite a bit in Arizona, and literally grabbed the guy's arm, the guy that ran our joint venture out there. And I said, look, I'm interested in coming out there. And I've always been fascinated by the Japanese culture and really international business in general. I kind of just threw a Hail Mary and see what he said. And he, at the time, their company was very, very Japanese, not much foreign involvement or foreign culture within that office, besides the fact that they had some American brands. And so he went for it. And I ended up moving out there for 2 years. And it was an eye-opening experience. The Japanese culture is unlike any other. The best food you'll find just about anywhere in the world. But really what struck me when I was out there is I've kind of grown up around restaurants and specifically franchising. My parents were involved in franchising their entire careers, still are in some capacity. And so, but all in, very kind of hyper local Arizona involvement. And so being in Japan, the one thing that I took away from there was their hospitality sector is just amazing. It's 5-star everywhere you go. And so I wanted to obviously take that one piece away from Japan and implement it in really anything else that I did in my life, because it doesn't matter if you walk into a cafe or a 5-star restaurant, you are going to have top-notch service, above and beyond experience, and just good people, friendly, nice, and easy to talk to. So the brands I worked with in Japan were Krispy Kreme donuts, as you mentioned, Auntie Pretzels, and then obviously Cold Stone. And we ended up growing those brands by about 20 units. It was about 40% growth during my 2 years. So really, really exciting times. And then I decided to make it my move back to the US. And I ended up consulting for a few brands for about a year, specifically focused on the US market going into Asia. So legacy concepts, Which Buffalo Wild Wings, to name a few.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then, during that time, I continued my relationship with the Japanese folks, and we decided to, me working for them, obviously in a group of investors, purchase what is now Daily Jam, with the hopes of growing that into a household name.
Let's get back to that word hospitality, because it really drives our industry, and it's really about passion, and it's about the foundation of the business. And my definition of hospitality has always been hospitality is absent when something happens to the guest. Hospitality is present when something happens for the guest. Now, you've talked in depth about, the inspirations that you received from the Japanese culture and just the time you spent there. Would you say that hospitality definition goes above and beyond in Japan, and what would their spin on that word be? And you obviously brought those inspirations back in Daily Jam. We'll get into that, but can you elaborate a little bit more on that word hospitality and what the Japanese culture, how they relate to hospitality?
Yeah, it seems to be something that they grow up with, and it's not necessarily something that's taught. Where here, there's a lot of emphasis put on training, philosophy, and manuals, and a lot of scripted relationships with the guests, which, don't get me wrong, in Japan, in my experience, it was very similar in terms of the scripted nature. But in general, the culture there, it's almost like there isn't another road to choose. You know what I mean? Where here, for whatever reason, I think that we get caught up in our own lives and individual situations. I think what I witnessed there was more whatever it takes for the company. They have this kind of die-hard loyalty about them, and for good and bad. But in a lot of cases, it was for the better. And whatever the company needed to be done, that was the way that they would act and hold themselves to. So yeah, I think that it was definitely something that I think the U.S. could learn a lot about. I think, again, it's partly training, but I think it's also just a way of life and finding the right people too. It's more of a personality thing than it is something that can technically be trained.
It's an honorable culture. So I think I'm
Definitely
hearing that it's about honor, and it's an innate thing that, the Japanese people just grow up with, and they apply that to their lives. That's what I'm hearing, and that's what I guess I believe.
Yeah, no,
Cool.
that's completely correct.
All right. So Daily Jam, right? It was called Encounter prior. Tell us about that.
It was. So the original concept was called Encounter. It was opened up by a husband-wife team, restaurateurs here in Arizona. They have one other breakfast restaurant here in the Valley. They opened it up right on Mill Avenue, which is kind of our college drive for Arizona State University. 3,000 square foot space, so a little bit smaller. It is fast casual, so you order at the counter, take a number, and sit down, and the food gets brought out to you. So when we originally looked at the concept, the one thing that really stood out was the quality of the food for being fast casual. So when you sit down and the food's brought out, it's brought out on real china, real silverware. You would actually think that it was full service if you just got your food brought to you.
That's unique.
It's very unique, especially for breakfast. Breakfast, there aren't a lot of people doing what we're doing in terms of fast casual. I think there's pros and cons, but we've really found a niche in the way that we serve our customers, to be able to offer flexibility. We give them a lot of different ways to order. They can order at the counter, they can order at the bar. And so with that, we looked at it. The name was really funky, right? It's the letter N and then counter. And so when we looked at it, there was a lot of upside in the concept. The menu was amazing. The ingredients, the supply chain was spectacular. The level of service and the way that the operations was flowing was something that really caught our eye. But the brand itself wasn't something that we thought could scale into new markets. There's no reference to food, which not that there needs to be, but you don't really know what it is. If somebody says, "Hey, meet me at Encounter," the amount of times that I was on the phone with somebody and they say, "Oh, how do you spell it? Is it ENC?" It was causing a lot of problems from a marketing and a branding perspective. So
was that meant to be a play on words, as if it were an encounter? But yeah, it doesn't relate to the food at all. So I could clearly see that the brand needed a transformation.
Yeah. So the original intent was, I'm going to encounter my friends, kind of a meeting place, a gathering,
I see.
A central hub, if you will. And believe me, it caught on, right away. Within the first couple of years, it was the breakfast place in Tempe, and it still is, for sure. But that was more because of the food and the way that our guests were having their experiences than the name.
So it sounds to me like you didn't fix what wasn't broken, but you did a brand transformation. Did you change the vibe or the ambiance, or did pretty much everything stay the same? You just changed the name. Tell me what changed and what didn't.
Yeah, so obviously big thing that changed was the name, new signage. The interior of the restaurants primarily remained the same. We did a few touch-ups here and there, more branding elements in terms of design work, and adding some pieces that were more central to the core. Previous to that, there was some farm animal references and some things like that. We wanted to kind of move away from that and be more modern, right? The rest of the restaurant, which I'll get into, or maybe you'll ask about, is very modern. You walk in, exposed concrete, a lot of metal, a lot of natural elements. And so we just felt that the farmhouse theme really is kind of more in that traditional breakfast space, and we want to be kind of new and progressive, and that's who our customer is too. So we did those two things. We simplified a couple things as we were going through the rebrand process, in terms of the flow of the restaurants and making sure our guests know how the process works. But all in all, the menu stayed completely the same, and we made sure our guests knew that. We have some extremely loyal customers that were, I'd say, nervous when they saw that we were changing our name. They thought that the whole thing was going to change.
Yep.
And that was a big hurdle for us that I think we ended up doing a really good job handling. But all in all, apart from a few design updates, the concept remained the same.
Progressive, and you kept the supply chain, you kept the quality standards, the menu stayed the same. You've got some unique menu items. You've got a PB&J smoothie, you've got pear omelets, you got something called red velvet waffles, right?
Yeah. So the PB&J, that's, when we talk about our menu, we like to think that we have the change up down the middle. Somebody walks in, they want a traditional breakfast. We obviously have that stuff, and it still remains our top sellers, but we do have some really creative dishes that get people excited. And the people that come to our restaurants 3-4 times a week, it gives them the opportunity to play around with different things and try new things. The pear omelet, for example, is one that you look at a pear on an omelet. At first you're like, that's not for me, but you try it, and the combination of the pear, the bacon, the almonds, and the brie is unreal. And so, you have it for the first time and you're like, oh, this blew my mind, right? So we have a lot of those things that are mind blowing for the guests when they first try it. The PB&J smoothie for me is I probably have it every other day because it's one of those flavors that you just you crave.
Right, right.
Growing up, you have a PB&J sandwich,
Of
and
course.
this is a more healthy option. And so, anyways, the PB&J smoothie is definitely one of those. The red velvet waffles, we were named best waffles in Arizona by Food Network for those specific waffles. And everything about our restaurant is Instagrammable, and so that's by intent, by decision, and so that goes to the plating, the way that the food's brought out. There's a lot of oohs and ahs when that food hits the table, and the waffles are just downright good. They're not. There's nothing flashy about them, but they are just they're downright good. And one thing that we do as well, specifically to our waffles, is they're gluten-free, and we don't really advertise them as gluten-free. But when customers ask, hey, what can I get that's gluten-free? And we say our waffles, well, they say, are they the same waffles that I just ate the other day? Because those were fantastic. And yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, when Food Network did that contest or that study, or not study, but that article, they didn't know their waffles were gluten free. They didn't even mention it in their article. So pretty interesting stuff, and I think it just goes to the way that we innovate and kind of create new things, and a lot of that comes from our team, to be honest. So we give our kitchens a lot of runway with what they're able to do and experiment with, which is a fun process. But
I want to make sure the audience gets the connection between you mentioning Instagram and social media and the wow factor, I call it, of the plate presentations. Because when you put something in front of the customer and you hear the oohs and ahs and they say, wow, look at this, then all of a sudden the camera phones come out and there is free marketing and brand building right there. And you can't put a price on that. It's invaluable to any restaurant operation.
And I think that, like I said, almost all of our dishes are Instagrammable when they come out big portions. So, it is a wow factor. It's
right.
Definitely that wow factor. And we do some other things, some promos that are really geared around not necessarily selling a whole lot, but when they do come out of the kitchen, the entire restaurant turns their head. So, for example, we did. Just recently our swole cakes promotion. So swole cakes, swole meaning like big, buff.
Yeah.
5 pancakes stacked on top of each other, layered with bacon, eggs, potatoes. We did another one that was bananas, walnuts, peanut butter. I mean, these things come out of they're about 10 inches tall. And so when they fly out of the kitchen, the entire restaurant, the people standing in line, they all turn their heads. And we do some cool stuff with the local community, and $1 from each stack goes to Wounded Warriors, which is kind of a fun thing. But yeah, I mean, back to social media, if we can turn one guest experience into 100 of their friends seeing an amazing plate of food, like you mentioned, you do that over and over and over again, there is that ripple effect. So we definitely are conscious of that and make sure that that we try to achieve that whenever we can.
Now you're talking about hooks, and I'm a huge believer in hooks in restaurant and hospitality operations. You cannot have too many hooks, because this is also free marketing. It's powerful. It's stuff that, it goes beyond the wow factor, and now you get the buzz and people are talking about it. So yes, social media is a huge part of that, but people are telling everybody they know, you got to check out that 10 stack of waffles, and wow, And then I love the fact that you're community minded and that you're giving back to worthy causes also. It's noble, and it's something we should do in this business. And that's, that goes a long way as well. Very cool.
We're values driven. So we have 6 core values that we are kind of guided by, I guess. And the team is probably sick of me talking about them, but
tell us about it.
Yeah. So community is one of them, for sure. And so, when we look at what's our main goal? We really want to be everyone's neighborhood breakfast spot. And so, how do we do that? It's engaging, right? It's putting ourselves out there. It's getting our teams to think like members of the community and not just team members. So we get them out on the streets a lot, and whether it's in uniform or not, volunteering, helping out. Anytime there's something going on, we always put up our hand to help out. And so we think that that's our best opportunity to show that we care. And again, there is obviously inherent value in that, and we definitely probably see a return, but it's the right thing to do, and it gets our employees thinking the right way. And I think our customers appreciate that too. So,
well, yeah, the staff are obviously a reflection of the business, and I'm hearing that they're brand ambassadors for Daily Jam wherever they go, and they believe in the concept. They're spreading the word, but they're also doing good at the same time.
Yeah, our team members that isn't a customer, so they all love our food, and they dig our vibe, and it obviously goes into hiring too. You're hiring the right people, but at the end of the day, if we can get our employees and our team members to be brand ambassadors, like you mentioned, that's a big deal.
Can you tell us what those 6 core values are?
Yeah. So the first one is people first, and so that is a big one for us. When it comes to an overarching theme within our organization in terms of how we really handle ourselves as people. People first is something we always talk about. So for managers and for myself, it's our team members and our employees, and that's first for a reason. We think that if we treat our employees the right way and they're given the right tools to succeed, our customers are going to be happy too. And so the people are really our team members, our employees, and our customers. And when I say team members, I'm talking about across the lines, right? So respecting each other. How do we communicate with one another when we're on shift or not? How do we show empathy and care about each other? And if somebody's having a bad day within the restaurant, going up to them and then asking them, hey, is there anything that I can do? Those little things make a big difference. And again, it's not even just it's not even just an organizational thing. We talk about these core values as being kind of rules to live by in general. And then our customers. So, our customers obviously are our driving force, and listening to them, understanding their needs and their wants, and again, showing empathy. Empathy is a big word for us. People first is one of our main values, and so goes to our franchisees too. As we continue to expand and grow, we will be very diligent about the franchisees that we end up deciding to work with, and I think at the end of the day, that's a big decision about who's going to be championing the brand across the country. So that's core value number 1. The next one is be remarkable, which let me pull this up real quick. If you don't mind, I'm just going to pull this up because I've got it's kind of what it sounds like. It's if you break that down, it's how do you get people to remark about their experience? And so we talked a little bit about word of mouth and social media, but in general, it's going above and beyond. So we are fast casual, and there's this connotation with fast casual that the service stops once they pay, right? They order first, they pay, and then they get their food. We like to buck that trend, and once that customer is seated and it gets their food, it's how do we go above and beyond? We offer them a refill on their soda. We offer them a water. Is there anything else that I can get you guys, while they're seated? Going above and beyond is really what that's all about. So that is core value number 2. The next one is own it. And this is really centered around accountability, right? So if an employee or if somebody does make a mistake, we own it and take accountability and have pride in our jobs. So that goes for everybody from a manager to dishwasher. Really taking pride in their job and knowing that they have an impact, right? Like everybody has a very solidified role within the restaurant, and giving them that feeling of ownership and knowing that is a big thing for everyone in the restaurant. So own it. Another piece of that own it core value is really celebrating. So when we do have wins and we beat, let's say last year's sales, let's all celebrate together and we all did a good job. So everybody understands what the goals are. So when we do, put up those numbers, there's that sense of ownership and, I did that, it was them. It wasn't me, sitting across the state in a different restaurant. It was that individual team at that four walls. So, it's a nice one. Definitely one of my favorites. The next one is definitely one of my favorites. So it's have fun. So the fifth core value, have fun, is important. We like to have fun. You talked about some of our creative menu items. That comes down to having fun, right? It's what can we do to further our business? What can we try today that might make sense or it might not, in the kitchen or elsewhere? And I think if you're going to spend 40 plus hours a week somewhere, it had better be a fun place to be. Otherwise, that's no way to live. So we definitely try to have fun wherever we can. We talked about community, and then the last one is always be learning. So continued growth, making sure we listen to our people, and we talked about who our people are: team members, employees, customers. Constantly be listening for feedback and craving it, right? So not hiding from potentially things that we don't do very well. Really lifting up the rocks and looking at all the worms and making sure that we see what things we can fix and change, and consistent growth, right? And that goes for the people and the brand, but making sure that everybody is constantly in that learning mindset, which again, isn't just something organizational. I think that we should all be looking to learn as much as we can,
Definitely,
every single day. So
that's outstanding. 6 core values that everyone lives by. Let's, this is a natural segue into your training philosophies and your training plans, but let's start with onboarding a typical new staff or a new team member. What's that like? And is it shadowing a veteran? Is it so many, shifts before they're actually getting, to deal with a customer? Are they observing? Are they just, diving in and, learning immediately? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, we currently do an orientation, which is basically the manager sitting down, talking about these core values and explaining the philosophy of the brand, what makes Daily Jam tick, why do customers come back as much as they do, just so that they can understand what they're getting into and really, how they need to look at their day-to-day tasks. That's before any other training begins. The next step is really a technical overview. So whether it's a busser, dishwasher, or even a manager, what are the technical tasks that they're going to have to know how to do before they can do their job independently. And then we get into shadowing. So yeah, we're a big proponent of shadowing. Shadowing a veteran, somebody that's been there long term. We have great retention, especially being on a college campus. Not that both of our locations are on college campuses, but our turnover is extremely low. We have hourly employees that have been with us for 5-6 years. And so, really our goal with training is really to give them every tool to succeed. There's nothing worse than being undertrained as an employee. And that goes for the manager who's supervising them too. So, but that feeling of confidence and trust, making sure that our employees trust each other, So before we deploy somebody independently, we need to make sure that we know that the other employees, the veterans, can trust them to do their job, so they don't have to think about it. And so, yeah, it's a shadowing process. We use a lot of manuals and training guidelines for the employee, so they know, hey, it's going to be a 6-day training. This is what you're going to cover each day. There's notes being taken. There's a review at the end of every day, what they learned, what they need to focus on the next day. And then they're on their own. And, once they're on their own, it's not just, hey, we'll see you guys later. It's an evaluation after a week or so. And if there's things that we need to recover, then we will. We also are big on consistent continued education. So it's not like a formal, continued education program, but we do revisit, gather everybody, whether it's, let's just say the busser team, and revisit the entire training guideline. So what are the things that we should be doing? What are the standards as a brand? And that just keeps us consistent, after time. Bad habits can form. And so just making sure we flush those out as they come up is kind of the way that we handle it.
I've always been a huge believer in, the training piece goes without saying, but having a daily pre-shift, even if it's just 3 to 5 minutes, and setting the stage for the day to come and what we want our guests to leave with and how we want to touch each guest in a personal way. And then there's the suggestive selling piece, not just being an order taker, but being a, brand ambassador. Again, it's like people that work in a particular restaurant are, the experts, and a guest might be the very first time visitor walking through the door. They don't know the first thing about what they're going to enjoy. So it's really superior service to make suggestions.
Definitely. Yeah. And so, what I didn't mention is menu test. And it's something that just recently we're really enforcing to the point that, I don't care if you're in the back of the house and you're not cooking food, if you're a dishwasher or if you're a manager, you need to know every single ingredient in every single dish. Is this dish gluten-free? Can it be made gluten-free? Not just gluten-free, but gluten-free, dairy-free, plant-based, vegan. All of that stuff needs to be completely solidified in their minds to the point where they don't even need to think about it. And so the menu test is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially for us being fast casual, where full service, you have a waitress and a waiter, and they're responsible for communicating with the guests. For us, for the most part, our bussers are the ones who are getting grabbed or getting waved down by a guest because they have a question or they have a concern about something that might be in their dish. And so they need to be probably even more. Yeah. So it's a different philosophy and something that we've identified being fast casual in our system that we need to make sure that, especially with the dietary shift, I guess, the more conscious eaters, we need to make sure that we're handling those properly.
That's great. Bussers shouldn't just be seen and not heard. They should interact with the customer. They should be well-trained, knowledgeable. And, it's always a pet peeve when you go out to a restaurant and you ask a question and you hear, oh, I don't know, let me go check for you. Or I got to go ask my manager. It's a reflection on that restaurant. It's a reflection on the way they approach the business. And I'm hearing that, everybody that interacts with a customer, and even in the back of the house, everyone is knowledgeable because people are cross-trained and people may move up in the organization and they're in a better position to, deliver the best experience for the customer. That's fantastic.
Exactly right. Yep. And, it's a unique quality of our restaurant, I think. Again, being fast casual, it's a lot more free flowing than a traditional full service restaurant. So you have to be that way. And, I think at the end of the day, when we look at the labor market, we really do, you brought up cross training. We try to give people the ability to learn new roles or expand into new roles. But everybody is definitely held to a certain standard when it comes to understanding and knowing the restaurant. So it's a unique quality of ours, I think.
It sounds like you're in an enviable position because you did mention you have very low turnover. And of course, restaurants across the country are really struggling with that labor issue right now. It's so hard to find, keep, motivate, a great staff. And turnover in this industry, unfortunately, is rampant. So you're doing all the right things. And it certainly helps to be, close to a major college campus because there's always, kids that are looking for jobs. This sounds like a fun place. You talked about that. Let's talk about expansion plans. Now, you are franchising. You do have a franchisable model here, and you're maintaining company-owned stores as well as selling franchises, or how's that working?
Correct. Yeah. So we're going to remain or keep our two corporately owned locations.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal with that is training, R&D, keeping in touch with the customers. I don't think you can truly run a franchise organization without having your own restaurants. And so yeah, when we look at growth, we are really excited about 2020. So it's been in the making for a long time. We did the rebrand in February of last year, of 2019. And the goal behind that was obviously for growth. And
Right.
So as we got to Q3, Q4 of 2019, we really put our foot on the gas, started to have some really good conversations with some really strong groups across the country, targeting 3 different areas across the U.S. So obviously Arizona and the Southwest. So we're also looking at Denver and Texas and the Midwest for a few reasons, but we do think that the real estate market there in terms of looking at other college campuses as a case study, those Big Ten schools, they could definitely have a huge impact for Daily Jam's growth. And then also Florida and the South. So we're currently making an announcement next week, but we just signed a deal for the entire state of Michigan, which is going to be huge for us. We look at Ann Arbor and we look at even Detroit, other cities in that market. We think that that's going to be a huge market for us long term with a really strong group. They definitely know what they're doing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then have conversations going in a few other markets, and some are further along than others. But now that we're past the rebrand and we have a few deals under our belt, we're really excited to get showcase what we've really been fine tuning the last few years with this model, our team, our philosophy, and expanding it across the country.
So the key word that comes to mind with any restaurant, but more so with a franchise model, is systems. So everything has to be dialed and duplicatable and not deviated from, because these are really best practices. So it must have taken quite a while to sort of refine, systemize every aspect of the business, and then make sure that those are followed with each franchisee. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I can.
Yeah, we purchased the restaurant from the original owners in 2016, April of 2016, and have been really methodical about making sure that we were ready for growth. We know, me being involved with the Hall of Brands and some of those larger legacy concepts, Z-Growth, which I haven't mentioned. So Z-Growth is a private equity firm that came in November of 2018. And they are a kind of a niche private equity firm that's solely focused on franchise companies. Their chairman and their management team has a lot of experience growing small concepts via franchising into larger concepts in a lot of different industries. So not just restaurants. They've definitely done restaurants, but real estate. They've done storage and moving. So their experience combined with mine, maybe more hyper-focused restaurant experience on the franchise side.
Right.
We've taken our time. So it's been a few years now of getting our ducks in a row, I guess, is the best way to put it, and making sure that we do have a strong system, because we've all seen what can happen if you grow too quickly or if you grow without being ready. And so I think that it's definitely unique to have that kind of experience with a 2-unit breakfast concept or a restaurant in general. Um,
And you would expect a certain amount of prior experience from a potential operator. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're looking for franchisees ideally with restaurant experience. I think when I say ideally, it can be in a lot of different capacities, right? They don't necessarily have to have ownership experience. We have a pretty extensive training program, or very extensive training program, with regards to the ownership responsibilities and the day-to-day. But yeah, we ideally would like to see restaurant experience in some capacity. We're looking for multi-unit franchise operators, as most people are.
Sure.
People who have existing restaurants already. That is the ideal situation. But we're not exclusively going to hold people to doing 3-5 units all at once, knowing that we are still a small concept.
Sure. Do they spend time training in the corporate stores?
Yeah. So the training process for us is basically they come out to Arizona within 60 days of their opening date, and we spend 6 to 8 weeks going through every part of the business. So it's about a week in the classroom, and then another 5, 6, 7 weeks, depending on how it goes, in the restaurant. And they have to pass training, obviously, to open their restaurant. And so, but they leave here with everything that they would possibly need to know. They basically end up running one of our corporate locations for at least a couple weeks.
Do you require that they own the real estate, or a leasehold's okay?
Yep.
Let's shift gears a second. It just triggered a thought. I want to go back to your menu because you're also doing specialty cocktails. Does it go beyond the traditional mimosas and Bloody Marys? You got some really creative stuff going on as well?
Yeah, I mean, here and there. So we have a lot more than just champagne and, let's just say vodka for Bloody Marys.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of fun back there. The bar is a central piece of our restaurant in terms of design. It sits right in the middle of every restaurant. We do indoor-outdoor seating and with windows that roll up. Obviously not for every climate, but
sure.
That environment really opens up the space. We make sure that we're hiring the right people to be behind the bar, friendly. They interact well, engage well. But the bar is a very difficult, and it needs to be a senior team member, because you're pumping everything from smoothies to coffee to specialty cocktails out of that one spot. So yeah, we do a lot of different creative things. We have a lot more than just beer and wine. We do some things with our coffee. We're doing kind of an Irish coffee series special right now with the winter down here. And even our Bloody Marys, though, we've got 5 different kinds. All are a little bit creative. All use different types of liquor. And then our mimosas, we've got 5 different ones as well. So it's definitely a fun thing and something that people can get a little bit more creative with.
On the food side, we talked about keeping the existing menu intact. Does that mean that it never changes? Do you add things from time to time? Do you have off the menu specials just to keep, your kitchen crews creative? How does that work?
Yeah, so we do, we're almost constantly running LTOs, which limited time offerings. We usually like to run those between 30 and 45 days. For example, we just launched January 1, something we're calling a New Year, New Us, New Year, New Jam special for plant-based menu items, which is something we've never done. And we're testing it out to see if there's a response in the market for it. Basically, running through them, there's a garden patty melt, which is a plant-based quinoa burger with vegan mozzarella style cheese, caramelized onions on sourdough. It's fantastic. I was really skeptical. I'm not necessarily plant-based myself, but I tried it out and was like, yes, we're doing this and it's going to be on the menu someday.
Yeah.
And then we have a sauté, which our sautés are basically scrambles. A mixture of eggs, potatoes, all tossed in a skillet together. And that one is with a soy chorizo from Morningstar Foods. All of this entire LTO was partnered with Morningstar Foods, who is definitely one of the leaders in that space. And then we do the acai smoothie, which we've never done acai in the restaurants, which is definitely something
that
that's
makes
new for
perfect
us.
sense to me.
Yeah, and it's it's a buzzword for sure, but it's a fantastic drink and something that already just in the first couple of days we're seeing some tremendous response from it. And then the last one is an avocado toast with soy chorizo as well. So we're excited about it, and it's definitely something fun. And when we go back to LTOs, we like the creative aspect of it. I don't think we shy away from wanting to try new things and kind of buck the trend a little bit. And so we use it as a way for our team members to stay engaged. We're constantly talking about, LTOs 3, 4, 5 months from now. And we use a lot of different things. Our waffles, for example, are something that we use quite a bit in the winter months. December, we ran our gingerbread waffle, which is it's really good. And
Sounds great.
And then before that, it was our pumpkin waffle. So, we do things, like I said, constantly running something new, and kind of runs right alongside our menu. And then you never know if one of them takes off, we end up putting it on the menu. So a good example of that is we did an LTO last summer, maybe spring. Was our breakfast tacos. So we launched what was called Eddie's Breakfast Tacos. Eddie's one of our kitchen managers. So he came up with the idea. He deserves the credit. I called them Eddie's Breakfast Tacos, and they're phenomenal. It's scrambled eggs, black bean salsa that we do in house, cheese, chipotle sauce, and come out on a little taco tray. So it's something unique. They took off during the LTO, and so we were like, these need to be on the menu. So they're permanently on the menu now. But other than that, we haven't really reduced the size of our menu or taken things off recently. I think that there's probably room to do that in the next 12 months, but we have a really good consistent P-mix in terms of there's not a lot of things that are just on the menu for ink. They all sell, they all are playing into a different audience. And so that's one thing that I think we have that's going for us that's a little different than other concepts.
One of the things that really strikes me, you said that you're a finance guy, you're into the numbers, and I can imagine when you design this menu, I do quite a bit of coaching one-on-one with different restaurants, and I've identified the fact that so many restaurants out there put a menu together without 3 key things in mind. You need variety, appeal to the customer, and most of all, it needs to be profitable. And the product mix is a key part of this exercise, but I've identified the fact that so many restaurants out there in different categories, whether we're talking about the appetizer starter category, the entree category, the dessert category, there's a huge profit spread difference in those different items in these categories. And when we cost out the menu, if they haven't already done so, and then you put 6 months of product mix data behind it, and you quickly see that in the weirdest situation, it's like more frequently than not, the lowest profit items are the biggest sellers. And every time you're selling A versus B, you're leaving so much money on the table. And this is like a eureka moment when I sit down with someone and I say, you know what, over the last 6 months, you just lost a potential $180,000 worth of profit because the spread is so different. It's really frightening. Have you addressed that when you designed the menu, or was it done when you acquired this existing menu?
It's been something in the last 18 months that we've really put a focus on. I think the issue that a lot of mom and pop restaurants, or not mom and pop, but one-off restaurants struggle with is to do it the right way with technology. It is expensive in terms of doing your cost analysis and your cost of goods reporting. For example, we're still doing it manually. Maybe that's me because I like the control, but We do all of our spreadsheets manually in terms of inventory, all of our costing. It's basically a spreadsheet that uses all of our order guides from our distributors. We update that pricing every week. So that pricing automatically shifts from our distributors into the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet updates every single menu item based on portion size. And so we know if avocados, for example, which just happened, skyrocket, we know what menu items that's affecting. Okay, let's take down those marketing pieces for those items and let's shift it over to this lower cost item.
Smart.
So that's really, how we use it. And I just think it's difficult for people to sit down and take the time necessary because it is a long and lengthy process. But once you do it and you understand it, it is eye-opening. For us, there were definitely some menu items that we were like, okay, we need to either adjust price or look at moving it somewhere else on the menu, because placement does have a factor too, where it is and how many customers are seeing it. But yeah, we do a lot of numbers. We one of our overall management, I guess, philosophies is we're results driven. At the end of the day, the numbers tell the story, and so we look at a lot of numbers. We have a weekly report that spits out probably more than most managers are looking at in other restaurants in terms of our labor breakdowns, and we leverage as much technology as we can for that in terms of scheduling platforms and stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's restaurants are difficult businesses to run, and you need to have grit. You need to be able to sit down and crunch through it. So
fortitude. Yeah,
fortitude for sure.
Well, again, I'm not going to use the word mom and pop, and like we're talking about independent operators, whether they have one location or two or three. I call this the business of 1,000 details, because there's so many moving pieces. And the inventory process really is or can be onerous, and it's just one more of those details. But there's so many restaurants out there that don't take a regular inventory, don't figure out what their true food and beverage costs are, don't monitor labor costs, and they're running businesses at their peril. Not taking inventory is kind of like leaving, $100 bills all throughout your walk-in, and whoever walks in there just grabs one. It's like, you don't know.
Well, and it's funny too. I talk to our distributors quite a bit, and they get the question a lot about price. Like, hey, I'm whatever it is, I'm an independent operator, and I go to the distributor. Hey, I need you guys to come down on price, and we sit down and talk about it. It's the same thing. It's the easy way to reduce their purchasing is by monitoring how they do their business inside the restaurant. It's less about. Don't get me wrong. There are instances where there's room, but it really is more of an internal discussion than it is going and asking for a handout. But
yeah, I think it's critical and it's foundational to running an effective and a strong, profitable operation. You got to do this. So pay attention, people. If you're not taking inventory and monitoring your costs, start doing so now.
Control too. We just recently went to one standard utensil for measuring on the line. So all of our build cards now are referencing one tool, not quarter cup here, half cup here. It's a 2 ounce, basically a 2 ounce scoop. And so everything is done with that. There's no variance. There's no which one is it today. It's one standard scoop. And we saw portion control affect our cost of goods immediately.
Definitely.
And so we've been able to have some really good gains just in the last 6 months with that change.
That's another key learning, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because different employees have a different hand, different, not only the size of their hand when they're portioning out ingredients, but if they're not paying attention, one extra ingredient when the recipe calls for this, there has to be that consistent standard. And again, that is a huge impact on your cost of goods if you're not standardizing those portions. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Last question. Let's talk about recognition and rewards. It sounds like you got a great team. You got longevity and low turnover. What type of recognition do you offer in the different stores to recognize employees and make them feel like they're part of the team and that you appreciate their contributions?
Yeah, I think So we don't do like the traditional employee of the month or anything like that. We actually just, and again, this is maybe just me, but we went to an OKR system the beginning of the summer, basically. OKR is objective key results. Basically, it's John Doerr started it and championed it with Google. Much bigger organizations than we are, but when I read their book about it, it really gave me insight into how to give people that feeling of maybe not respect, but that everybody understands what they're working on and what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve. And so basically the way it works is it's a top-down approach. We have company-wide goals, objectives. Underneath each objective is a key result that ties directly to that performance, and it's all measurable. And so when we evaluate these, it's top-down. So everybody has to tie in with the top level objective, and it goes to the managers, and then the managers give it out to their expo, their runners, their bussers. So everybody's working on one thing that is kind of their own focus. And if everybody accomplishes their goal, the company-wide goals should really not be an issue. And so when we talk about recognition and rewards, we go on quarterly review processes, and we do our OKRs every quarter. Mm-hmm. And the manager will sit down with that employee, and they'll go through their individual goals. Did they hit them? Did they not? What were the issues? Are there things that we could do better to make you achieve your goals next time? Those little things where it's more about communication than it is about, hey, here's a gift card, right? Yes. We're much less, going back to retention, we're much less focused on bonuses and carrots as we are trying to take pride in their work, which I think is one reason that we've been able to sustain relatively low turnover in our restaurants. And so the OKR system is just a way for people to understand what they should be working on and what they should be focusing on, and how their work fits into the puzzle, right? There's a lot of moving parts with a restaurant. It can get very confusing and hairy at a lot of times. And with a simple system like the OKRs, they're able to understand right away how their work impacts the business every single day.
Fantastic. How can the audience follow you on your social media? Do you want to throw out a couple of handles here, and I'll include it in the show notes as well as in this recording?
Yeah, definitely. Daily Jams is at Eat Daily Jam, and we're on Instagram and Facebook. And myself personally, I'm on LinkedIn, Berekk Blackwell, Berekk Blackwell.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Website is mydailyjam.com, and for any franchising info, dailyjamfranchising.com has just about everything you need.
That's great. Daily Jam Franchising. I'm going to include all this because you never know. There's probably an operator out there listening to this podcast who might be interested in this hot, fast-growing concept. Berekk, it has been my pleasure hosting you on the podcast. That was the Restaurant RockStars Podcast, folks, and we will see you in the next episode. Guys, like I said, I love talking to dynamic operators that have really great concepts and building powerful brands, because that's really what it's all about. Why else would you be in this business if you're not going to build a brand? One of the most important things that we talked about was the importance of inventory and knowing your true costs. But what's also important is menu design, and they've clearly got that dialed at Daily Jam. But if you listen to the episode, we talked about how so many operators out there are putting menus together that just aren't maximizing their profitability. And that's something that I've specialized in for the last couple of years. I really love working one-on-one with operators and costing out their menu. And if they have already costed out their menu, figuring out, the volume of sales and what the profit spread difference is. And what I'm finding is the lowest profit items on a menu are usually the biggest sellers, which is really, really a challenge in your business. And sometimes the spread in appetizers, you could be losing $3 to $5 in potential profit or even more by selling a lower profit appetizer. On the entree side, it's even scarier. I'm seeing $7, $10, $12, $15 difference when the lower profit items are selling that you're leaving on the table versus the higher profit items. So this is a real challenge, okay, for a lot of operators. But again, we can figure this out and we can redesign a menu for maximum profitability that'll really print money and put it in your bank account. So if this intrigues you, reach out to me, Roger, Roger, at restaurantrockstars.com. I offer a 30-minute consultation, absolutely complimentary, no charge. I just love talking shop, and we can discuss your pain points and challenges in your restaurant. So once again, thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us a review on iTunes. It will help other operators and hospitality professionals find us. And once again, we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.